Welcome back to That Philly Sports Girl. I'm your host, Elise Person, and did the Philadelphia Eagles do anything with their bye week to improve? Looks like the answer is going to be no. Yesterday, the Philadelphia Eagles fell to the New York Giants 27-17 in a loss where penalties and fundamentals really hurt the Eagles as a whole, both offensively and defensively. Yesterday, the Eagles had 11 penalties for a loss of 74 yards. 4 of them being before the snap, 2 false starts, 1 encroachment call, and 1 neutral zone infraction. This is just laziness. This is lazy, undisciplined, unfocused. 4 penalties coming before the snap is just completely, your head is not in the game. You're unfocused, you're not there mentally doing what needs to be done, which is winning, beating the Giants, and staying atop the NFC East. And that's what yesterday really felt like for me. It just felt very unfocused. The Eagles were unfocused, lazy. They were not focusing in on their fundamentals. And I think that it really showed throughout the entire game. I just said basic fundamentals. Defensively, our defensive backs were getting crushed by the Giants' passing game. Daniel Jones finished yesterday throwing for 244 yards. Darius Slayton had 5 receptions for 93 yards. Sterling Shepard had 6 receptions for 47 yards. And Golden Tate had 2 receptions for 44 yards. The Eagles' defense had 1 pass broken up yesterday. They just weren't there. They were not in the game. The defensive line was sometimes nowhere to be found in the Giants' rushing game either. The Giants rushed for 151 yards of offense, and Daniel Jones had 2 rushing touchdowns. Last time we played the Giants, Daniel Jones had a breakaway, luckily fell before getting into the end zone. So yes, that was funny, haha, but now we are playing the Giants again and we're allowing him to break out and run again. He's a quick player. We need to be ready for that. So I just really felt like defensively we were not there. Our heads were not in the game. And on the offensive side, we weren't really there either. Jason Kelce, we love you, Jason Kelce. We hate to talk poorly about you, but it needs to be addressed. Yesterday, Jason Kelce's snaps were consistently bad. And a bad snap can be just as costly as a fumble. Yesterday, Jason Kelce was constantly leaving bad snaps, low snaps. 1 low snap directly caused a sack, and it just completely disrupts the offense when you have these low snaps. And I get frustrated too because maybe I'm the only one, but I feel like every time Jalen Hurts gets in the game, he gets a bad snap, which at first I feel like people that aren't recognizing what's going on are going to directly hit their fingers at him, Jalen Hurts, when really when the bad snaps are happening, we need to be looking at Jason Kelce and figuring out what's happening there. And that's why I keep bringing up fundamentals, because Jason Kelce, you're one of the best centers in the league. Why are we consistently giving bad snaps throughout the game? A big game, the Giants game, which we need to stay atop the NFC East and make a playoff run. Carson Wentz also was overthrowing very frequently in yesterday's loss. I'm not going to harp too much on Carson Wentz. I wasn't super upset and angry with his play. Granted, there were some drops by our wide receivers that should have been caught, and that's not on Carson Wentz. But I will say, it was his very first game without a pick being thrown. So yay, Carson Wentz, week 10, finally you don't throw a pick. Congratulations, I guess. But offensively, we just could not produce. We didn't get a touchdown until the 3rd quarter. And before then, all we had on the board was a field goal that was scored in the 1st quarter. The Eagles' offense was 0 for 9 in 3rd down conversions. The last time the Eagles had 0 3rd down conversions was November 7th, 2004 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I am going to put a lot of blame on Doug Peterson for the lack of offense. He has to give up the play calling. Get an offensive coordinator, Doug, please. Your play calling is just questionable at best. I just felt like yesterday he was not working with what was playing out on the field, if that makes sense. Work with what's working for you. I felt like he keeps straying away from the running game when the running game was really working yesterday. I wish we stuck with it a little bit more. Both of our touchdowns from yesterday's game were from the running game. We have Miles Sanders, which is, I think he should be in a Pro Bowl contender. I think he's doing amazing. And then we have Boston Scott, who Boston Scott always goes off against the Giants. And he had his touchdown yesterday. But I'm just frustrated with the lack of production or use of the run game, rather, because I think that it can be such a key piece of our offense, but we don't seem to run it. I mean, we're going to do a run play on 3rd and 18. Okay, that makes sense. No, not really, Doug Peterson. You want to throw the ball the entire game and then it's 3rd and 18 and we're going to run the ball? I don't like that. I don't think that really makes sense. So yesterday, Carson Wentz was 21 for 37, not the best pass completion ratio, so that's why I also wish that Doug Peterson stuck with the run game a little bit more. Boston Scott had 3 carries yesterday for 63 yards. Only 3 carries, though. That's where I also continue to point the finger at Doug Peterson. Boston Scott, especially against the Giants, should not have 3 carries. He should have much more than that. I mean, yesterday, Miles Sanders had about 15 carries, which still really isn't that much. With Miles Sanders in our offense, give him the ball more. Give both of them the ball more. I just think overall yesterday, there just was not that much positive play happening on the Eagles' end yesterday. I will say, to start the game, the offensive line looked really strong. Carson Wentz had a lot of time in the pocket at the beginning of the game, and I'm happy to see the offensive line coming together. Maybe that's all they worked on in their bye week because everything else looked horrible besides the offensive line, kind of. But yesterday's loss really puts the Eagles in a shaky spot looking towards the playoffs. With the Giants win against us, they are right on our tails in the fight to be in first place of this horrible division. We now have a 3-5-1 record, and the Giants have a 3-7 record. The only thing really saving us right now is our tie against the Bengals, which is so sad. That's so sad. But we have to now look at our schedule, look at what the Giants have done, and see how this all plays out, because we do not have an easy schedule coming up. We have the Browns next week, followed by the Seahawks, Packers, Saints, Cardinals, and then we finish the season against the Washington football team. The only teams that we really realistically have a chance of beating are maybe the Browns, the Cowboys, and the Washington football team. It'll be a miracle if we beat anybody else left in our schedule, especially if we continue to play the way we did today. We're not beating the Seahawks. We never beat the Seahawks. The Saints, we're not going to beat the Saints. If we do, it will be a complete miracle. But we have to change the way that we're playing. We need to show up for games and be mentally focused throughout 4 quarters. I just think overall, the Eagles need to focus on getting their fundamentals sound and just playing better football on both sides of the ball. Because what happened yesterday was just poor football. It was just sloppy. It's so stale to watch. I don't know if anybody else feels like this. I watch the game and sometimes I sit there and I'm like, what am I supposed to talk about in my podcast tomorrow? There's nothing happening. So hopefully I'm not the only one that just thinks it's the stalest football in the world right now. But hopefully I'm trying to be optimistic. They can maybe pull some stuff together, hopefully get a win against the Browns next week, but no promises. So now let's look over to see how the rest of the NFC East did this weekend. The Washington football team lost to the Detroit Lions 30-27 after the Lions kicked a 59-yard field goal as time ran out to win the game. In the loss, Alex Smith made his first career NFL start in 2 years after he suffered that gruesome leg injury. He finished the day 38 for 55 with 390 yards. He had no touchdown passes and no turnovers. The Washington football team is now 2-7. The Cowboys had a bye week this week, and they now look to play the Vikings this upcoming Sunday. And we know how the Giants did this weekend. Now the Eagles look ahead to play the 6-3 Cleveland Browns this upcoming Sunday. heading into the game, it is very, very important for the Eagles to just focus on fundamentals and show up Sunday ready to play. I think that was a big thing in the Giants. The Giants were not an unbeatable team by any means. We actually really should have had that win, but I'm not sure if the Eagles came in overly confident because they really have no reason to believe that they can beat anybody in the NFL at this point. So they need to come in humble, not cocky, focusing on fundamentals for the rest of the season. There is no game at this point that we can take lightly. I don't care if we're playing the Pee Wee football from down the street. We need to be ready to play because there's a pretty high chance that we could lose to the fourth graders down the block. So I just think that overall, fundamentals need to be cleaned up. Let's humble ourselves. There's a lot left on the table. We can still win the NFC East. We can still go to the playoffs and maybe do something in the playoffs. I'm not sure. It's not really looking too hot right now, even if we do make it to the playoffs. But let's just get there first. But getting into Sunday, like I said, I just hope that Doug Peterson can look into his playbook and make some adjustments. I don't see him giving up the play calling at any point during this season. Maybe we can talk about that going into next season, but I think that we're kind of stuck right now with Doug Peterson and the play calling. So I really need him to look at himself in the mirror, watch film, see what's working, see what's not, and just kind of make some adjustments in the play calling. In my opinion, the Browns are a beatable team, but it's not a game that we can take lightly by any means. The Eagles cannot take anyone lightly. So I really do think that the Browns are a beatable team, but we cannot play the way that we did yesterday, offensively or defensively. So that's going to do it for today. I'm That Philly Sports Girl, and thank you so much for tuning in.